Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode. Oh, wait a second. That was the other day. That was the other day. There goes the fancy graphic I spent thousands of dollars on. Hi, everyone.
This was a rerun. Now I got to come up with new ideas now.
There you go. Yes, you do. It's episode 501 of the All Dolphins podcast, joined again by Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel, whose mug I saw only a couple of hours ago when we had a Zoom media session with both defensive tackle Zach Sieler and offensive lineman Aaron Brewer. We will go over that in a little bit. I guess we have to start off with another Snapchat from Tyreek Hill. No, do we not? This one's certainly, and again, I know some people are going to be like, well, why would you ever doubt it? Because it's Tyreek, and Tyreek likes to troll. But per his Snapchat, he had a second offseason wrist surgery. The post was from today, Wednesday, May 7th. So what's the deal here? Did they not? So I guess technically then the first surgery would not have been successful surgery, which we always used to see in press releases because he had to have a second one. Or maybe the issue is more complicated. I don't believe anybody's going to shed any light on that particular topic because I would say most NFL teams, and you can tell me I'm wrong, most NFL teams are not very forthcoming in terms of medical information, which is fine. And the Dolphins certainly would be on the very, very low end of that.
Yeah, that's true. I would feel better if I saw this coming from the Dolphins because Tyreek is just such a troll, and that's the level that I'm at with him. But we probably are not going to get anything official from the Dolphins, maybe ever. It's already. I believe that they had said that Tyreek wouldn't do anything until training camp, or maybe into training camp after the initial wrist surgery, I thought. But I might be mistaken on that. Anyway, if he had a second wrist surgery, a follow-up procedure, or whatever, if it was originally a two-part thing, boy, I don't know when we might see Tyreek in training camp. Again, remember, in training camp, the way it's set up nowadays, the veterans and the starters really don't do much until joint practices. And so, given that, if Tyreek has had two surgeries, I don't know what the timetable is going to be, but I'm just not sure how much we could see him during training camp is my thing right now.
Okay, and just as a matter of record keeping here, there used to be a time when I don't recall exactly for the rest of the league, but so I'm going to go with the Dolphins. Dolphins would put out press releases to indicate a player had surgery, and it was usually followed by had successful whatever surgery it was. That stopped. I can't remember when. It's been a long time since those releases came out. I believe we may get confirmation. This is different than us asking Mike McDaniel the next time we speak to him, which is going to be during OTAs, which start the week of Memorial Day, which is Monday, May 20. Help me out here. Come on, May 26th. That week, yes, that week we have an availability with Mike McDaniel. We will ask him, and chances are he will confirm, just like he confirmed at the combine, that Tyreek had the first offseason surgery. Chances are there will be no details. If memory serves, McDaniel had said that the way I interpreted it was that he could do some running and conditioning during the offseason program, wouldn't be catching any passes, but that he would be fine for the start of camp. Whether now that changes the timeline, who knows? And this just adds another layer to the whole situation. Is it more attention seeking? Could the argument be made that he could have had the surgery and not posted on social media? And this follows, of course, the Monday thing with him being asked to name his top 5 quarterbacks. And then this also comes on the same day that there was a trade involving a wide receiver who's highly talented, but I saw the word mercurial, controversial, problematic, whatever term you can use. That's George Pickens, who went from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Dallas Cowboys. And if you look at the price tag, what Pittsburgh got in return, it was George Pickens and a 2027 sixth-round pick for a third-round pick next year and a 2026 fifth-round pick. So essentially a third-round pick, which is not a lot for a guy who's a really, really good wide receiver.
Yeah, and as far as Tyreek goes, it's we had, and I don't want to get ahead of the show, but we had the conference call, as you said, with Aaron Brewer and Zach Sieler today. I have too much respect for the process and for those guys than to put them on the spot and ask them about Tyreek in this type of a setting, a Zoom setting, as we have them today. But I really did want to ask those guys, would you be comfortable if Tyreek was voted team captain, and would you vote for Tyreek as team captain? But again, I'm not going to put those guys in that spot, but that's one thing that I really want to know. And then when you talk about Pickens and the words controversial and all that kind of stuff, and everything with Tyreek, man, I wonder how the players, feel. It was one thing last season when you were in the season with him and he's trolling and doing all that stuff. To me, after the finale, when he says, I'm out, that kind of changes things. And I know he apologized, but since then, I haven't had a chance to ask any players. I didn't ask anybody at Teron's party. That would be inappropriate. I didn't ask on the Zoom. That would also be inappropriate. But at some point we are all going to ask, and we're going to get some answers either on the record or off the record
Yeah.
about how they feel. And again, when I see the Pickens trade, and you know how permissive Mike Tomlin is, he dealt with AB and Antonio Brown until he didn't want to deal with that crap anymore. And then they got rid of, well, AB, I guess, kind of eliminated himself. But anyway, they parted ways. So you just wonder when and if the Dolphins players get to that stage with Tyreek and how it will come out.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to come out with public comments, and especially not if it's on camera. If it's a bunch of writers where there's no cell phone looking at them that it can be on video, I still don't believe you're going to get a name attached to it, because I just don't know that it would not violate locker room protocol. And this is where I know some fans complain about, well, why did he put his name on? Why using stuff off the record? Again, because there are certain things you don't say about your teammates on the record because it violates protocol. And if you want to get a real feeling for how teammates feel about Tyreek Hill and all that's going on around him, the only way you're going to get any kind of answer, more than likely, is going to be off the record. The point I would bringing up with George Pickens was in terms of the compensation. And again, with the Dolphins, with him and Jalen Ramsey, it's illogical to think anything happens before June 1st because of salary cap ramifications. But this tells you, and Pickens has two things over Tyreek to make him more appealing for a receiving team, in this case the Dallas Cowboys, is he's much younger. He's like, mid-20s, whereas Tyreek is going to be 31. And number two, he's on the final year of his rookie contract. He costs like $3.5 million this year, which is nothing. So if under those circumstances, all that Pittsburgh got was a 3, to expect the Dolphins to get a lot more if they were inclined to trade Tyreek to get rid of the headaches, I don't know that that's going to happen. And even for Jalen Ramsey, again, with the salary becoming an issue as well.
Yep. And really, with Tyreek, I think they need Tyreek, and he's the best player on your team. He's the central personnel for that offense. So I don't think that they're looking to move Tyreek. But man, you just have to deal with these headaches again, and there's no reason to think that things are going to level off or get better. I think it probably gets worse. I think not that I'm saying Tyreek is going to be arrested or anything, but I just think the trolling and the comments and the needling and all of that is going to continue. And I don't know where it ends. I've been told again that people have talked to him in that building, but I don't know what they say, because you remember after the marina incident, we asked Tyreek, what did the Dolphins say? And Tyreek said, well, they told me we support you and we're behind you, and we have your back. And it's like, wow, I bet they did say that. And I bet in some form or fashion they continue to say that.
No, correct. No, and it's not. And here's what I was going to say: the Dolphins are an organization that likes to fly under the radar, operate with,
Yes.
as little attention as possible on them. And all Tyreek keeps doing is bringing attention
Right.
for not necessarily good reasons. So let's move on. I don't want to spend, again, it's not like we haven't addressed Tyreek before because
Right.
it kind of occupies a lot of the time. So as we mentioned earlier, yep, there were Zoom sessions with Zach Sieler and Aaron Brewer. Right off the bat, Perk, did any comment, anything, any theme really stick out to you?
Yes, one did. Aaron Brewer talking about offensive line, and somebody asked, you got a couple of big guys on that offensive line with James Daniels and
Mm-hmm.
Jonas Savanea, and well, no, I butchered it. And
Savainaya. Okay.
Savanaya.
By the way, yes, I want to sit under Savainaya. Somebody sent me a clip of his combine interview, and I was next to him at one point, not the entire time. So when he actually pronounced his name for everybody else, I wasn't there. But as somebody sent me a clip, I saw it. Savainaya.
Savainaya. Okay, Jonas Savainaya. So Brewer, you've got these 300-pounders on either side of you, and one thing that Brew said is, I don't really care how big they are. Can they move? Are they agile? Because we're mobile, we're agile, and it struck me that Dolphins fans keep wanting these road grader offensive linemen for short yardage. That's not what the Dolphins want. They want agile. And I know Liam Eichenberg was not agile, but you remember Teron, I think he ran the fastest 40-yard dash at the combine, right, of any offensive lineman. You know that Connor Williams could move. You know Aaron Brewer could move. They don't want the road grader. They want athleticism. They want agility. We'll see how the 300-pounders mesh with that. But that's what stuck out to me is Bruce said, I don't really care how big they are. Can they move?
No, it's a very, very good point. And I'd forgotten about that part. And actually, yeah, that did actually stand out to me. I asked him about the challenge of building cohesiveness, chemistry, cohesion, whatever you want to call it, when you have three new starters on the line, which the Dolphins will have with Patrick Paul, Jonas Savainaya. Oh, man, I'm proud of myself now.
Yeah,
and James Daniels. And how much can be accomplished toward that goal during the offseason program. And he basically, he acknowledged the importance of it. And it's about like spending as much time as you need to spend with each other to get that done. I don't know that there was a ton. I'm looking at my notes here. There was a ton.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing that Bruce said that stuck out to me is when somebody asked him about short yardage. Maybe it was David Furones, my coworker. Maybe it was Omar Kelly. But Bruce said it's about attitude. It's about making up your mind. I'm going to beat that guy in front of me because Brew was asked, you got some beef up there. You got some running backs. And I'm sure the reference was to Alexander Madison and Ollie Gordon. And Bruce said, look, this comes down to attitude. You got to make up your mind. You're going to beat that man in front of you one-on-one. And so to me, that kind of takes the coaching and the scheme and the big bodies and all that stuff out of it. This is a mentality. This is an attitude. And I thought Brew was really good today about expressing that kind of stuff. He's not a rah-rah guy, and that's what I like about Brew. He's going to say what's on his mind. He's not going to do the company line stuff. He's going to tell you what's on his mind. And I thought those two things that he said about can they move and it's about attitude, one-on-one, beat that man. I thought that said a couple of things about where the direction this team needs to be going.
Yeah, and this brings back to mind for me what I asked of Alec Ingold last summer during training camp after the Dolphins were so poor in short yardage situations in 2023. And I kind of prefaced it as politely as I could that you're the fullback.
I remember.
And his thing was, he didn't talk about like will or whatever. He just talked about you have to beat your man one-on-one, more of the guys than not. And this is where like Brewer can talk about, the attitude and all that as much as he wants. Well, the defensive line wants to stop you as much as the offense wants to get it. So to me, it's more about winning the physical battles on the line of scrimmage. And I need to be convinced that this is a team that can get it done. I think it will help that they have two bigger backs that they didn't have last year. I mean, to me, the running back room last year was severely lacking in the physical element, which,
Yep.
again, is poor roster construction. I
Yep.
mean, the risk of being rude. That in the backup quarterback position. So just the fact that you have two guys, Madison, Ollie Gordon, two, who are more likely to be able to break tackles than Mostert, Achane, and Jalen Wright did last season, which was not very good. And that's what the analytics show. That right there is a step in the right direction as far as the offensive line being able to move people at the line on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. That, to me, we still have to see how that plays out.
Yep. And look, it is good that they got the 300 pounders, the bigger guys, but as Bruce said, that's not they're not looking for beef. They're looking for agility and athleticism. It's up to each individual to win your battle, and that's pretty much kind of that's it's not necessarily the Dolphins' style to be a physical, aggressive team. That's got to come from within. Maybe that's what Alec Ingold was also saying, that this is this isn't a systemic thing. This isn't coached into you. That has to already be within you. And so we'll see if it comes out this season. It's been 3 years and it hasn't come out. We'll see if it comes out this season. But I don't, I don't see any major change right there from the scheme or philosophy. It's got to be the individual.
No, without question. So the other guy who spoke today was Zach Sieler, who should point out, in case anybody forgot, reigning team MVP.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Props.
Yeah.
His media session started with a question about it. In case you guys were not aware, he had his jersey number retired. Speaking of jersey numbers, we love those. His was retired at Ferris State, number 96, and that's fine. I don't have as much of an issue with that as I do in the NFL, and that's a whole different conversation we can have some other time. He's the dude now on this defense, because they've lost Calais Campbell, who's now gone, Javon Holland's now gone, Jalen Ramsey's on the way out. Whole lot of high-end starters are leaving the team, and I will give the floor to you here. That way you can devote, because I know you're planning on writing about it, but you asked him reasons for optimism basically for the defense.
Yeah, and the two obvious ones to me are, it's your second year in defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver's system, and then you get the edge rushers back. You get Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips back. You combine them with Chop. They go along with Zach Sieler and Kenneth Grant on that front. You've got something brewing there on the front seven. We know that Jordan Brooks is a good linebacker. We know Terrell Dodson is good in pass coverage. So you've got some stuff working there, but I think that's about it. And Sieler really didn't go beyond that. He kind of stuck to those two things, and I thought that was telling. You can't point to anything in the secondary except Kader Kohou. That's it, because that's really all that's there as far as continuity and quality. We don't know about Ife Melifonwu, one of the safeties who came from Detroit. We don't know about Ashton Davis, the other safety who came from the Jets. We do know so far about Cam Smith at cornerback, and it hasn't been positive. We think we know a little about Storm Duck, the other cornerback, the undrafted rookie from Louisville last year. That's positive, but it's limited. So I thought it was interesting that Zach Sieler, and look, and I did say to Zach, I know that this defense is losing two potential Hall of Famers, and then I said possibly losing, and possibly losing Jalen Ramsey and losing Calais. And Zach Sieler went on to talk as though Jalen Ramsey is in the past tense, which I don't think surprised anybody, but it kind of tells you where the team's mentality and attitude is, that Jalen Ramsey is not going to be part of this team. So those were the two kind of takeaways from Zach Sieler for me.
Yeah, and let me sidebar onto this one too, because I know some fans are like, because I'm getting this on Twitter of like, well, Jalen Ramsey wants to be traded. He's under contract. Sucks to be him. You shouldn't, acquiesce to his demand. Keep him on your team. My take is, while in principle I agree with that stance, you shouldn't kowtow to everybody who wants to be traded. Football is a different game where you need everybody rowing in the same direction, or it can go south pretty quickly. Do you want such a high-profile player on your team if he doesn't want to be there? and I have a hard time getting to the point where I'm saying yes. What say you, Chris Perkins?
I agree, and Poop, I haven't done like a comprehensive study about guys who, when they demand a trade. We know that locally that Giancarlo Stanton did it with the Marlins. We know that Jimmy Butler recently did it with the Heat. This is not a Miles Garrett situation where it's you kind of say I want to be traded, and then they give you more money and everything is fine.
Yeah.
This seems legit. This seems like it's a point of no return. And in the NBA, it's really kind of common for guys to demand a trade, and the team cooperates. NFL, I would guess it's kind of common, but there's not a whole lot that jump up to me off the top of my head. I would have to go to wide receivers first, and I don't, right?
The Diva receiver.
Right, exactly. So I just think that that you just don't want Jalen Ramsey in there poisoning the locker room and going against what you want to accomplish. It would be a really, really bad negative situation. You certainly don't want anything close to the Jimmy Butler situation with the Dolphins. So if this one just seems like, again, it's not a Myles Garrett situation. This is something different. And when Zach Sieler talks about him and Jalen Ramsey in the past tense, like he's gone, I don't think there's a whole lot of hope that Jalen Ramsey is coming back. And I don't think the Dolphins should bring him back.
No, I agree. And to me, it's actually even more of a situation where I think you have to do it than the last time I can recall a Dolphin player wanting out, and that's Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah,
and the big difference there is Minkah Fitzpatrick at that time was a second-year player, first-round pick, but second-year player. Didn't have a whole lot of juice in his NFL career. Jalen Ramsey's been around a while. 2016, he's got the 7 Pro Bowls. He's a highly paid, high-impact, big resume player. And again, yeah, if you force him to stay on the team when he doesn't want to be here, and he decides to make it a toxic atmosphere in the locker room, I think he's got the ability to do that, and that can do more damage than losing whatever ability he has in the secondary. And he's got a lot of ability, obviously.
Yeah, and Poop, on that note, I think Anthony Weaver could actually survive that easier than Mike McDaniel, because I think that, Weave as being a former player and he has some chops. I think players respect Weave on what he's done and who he is. I think Mike McDaniel, there's still some questions with players. And even though he's a third-year now he'll be a fourth-year head coach. I think players probably still look at Mike and go, the guy hasn't won, so what's he about? And we see players showing up late and not being disciplined and not being, demoted. Raheem and Durham Smythe, being the exceptions last year. I think that Jalen could do more damage to Mike McDaniel than he could to Anthony Weaver. I think you've got to get Jalen Ramsey out of here just based on that potential alone.
Yeah, and while I don't know this for a fact, I cannot imagine that the Dolphins didn't ask at one point Anthony Weaver to can you like see what you can do, see if we can smooth the terrain a little bit, see if there's a situation that can be salvaged. Yeah. And clearly after the tweet we saw with the rotten orange on draft night, that does not appear that there's anything to be salvaged there. So and it does suck actually, because again, this is a very, very good player for whom you paid a lot, not in terms of compensation, because it's Hunter Long in a 3rd-round pick, so it necessarily hurts you that much that way, but took up a lot of your cap space the last couple of years, and now you're not going to.
This crushes your defense. I mean, the things that you could have been able to do. Again, like I said on the 500th show, you get Rasul Douglas. If he's the number 2 cornerback along with Jalen Ramsey, that's one thing. If he's your number 1, that's quite another thing. And the drop off from Jalen Ramsey to any other cornerback that's available is just huge. It drops off of a cliff. We're talking about a potential Hall of Famer who, okay, maybe he's no longer in the prime of his career, but he's still Pro Bowl caliber. And to lose him, a jack of all trades, a guy that you could just move around, it's crushing. It is absolutely crushing to this defense.
Yep, no question. And then the other one that they lost, it was a big one, who was already gone. That's Calais Campbell. I asked Sieler if he had any inkling all along that Campbell was going to be a goner, and he basically told me exclusively, along with the other people on the Zoom call, uh, that he found out basically when everybody else did. Zach, somebody who kind of plays it close to the vest. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if he knew right away that he wasn't coming back. I'm not sure it's something he would necessarily publicly volunteer.
He did volunteer when somebody asked him about Ramsey. He kind of threw in, "I don't know what's going on there." So
Correct.
that was kind of like, "Don't ask me. I don't know if there was an argument between him and McDaniel. Don't ask me. I don't know." I thought that was clever of that. Team leader, baby, team
No,
MVP. That's somebody who had learned.
absolutely, and I'm curious exactly how many players on the team would know the ins and outs
Yeah,
of exactly what's going on. The source of
yeah.
his.
I don't. That's a good question. I don't know. I, I, I don't know that Tua would ask. I'm sure they would tell him if he asked. I don't have a good feel for Tua from that standpoint. I guess as the quarterback, you would kind of want him to know, and as a team, as the team, as the face of the team, you would kind of want him to know. But I don't know. I don't know how they play that. By the way, Poop, four four of last year's team captains, if I'm not mistaken, are going to be gone, right? Teron, Calais, David Long Jr., and Jalen Ramsey. And they would bring back Tua, Tyreek, Alec Ingold. Who am I missing?
Sieler.
And Sieler, yes, and Sieler, yes. So four of your team captains are not going to be here. That's rough. That's a lot to overcome, also.
No, I agree, and I would imagine that if Campbell were still on the team, he would have had a conversation with Ramsey, like,
Yeah.
"What's up?" But that's neither here nor there. I'm trying to think what else struck out from Sieler. Naturally excited about the young players the Dolphins drafted at defensive tackle, including Kenny G. No, what is it? What do you call? They call him Kenny G, right?
No, did he?
I think he
I
called him
don't think.
Kenny G.
I thought he. Oh, you know what? I don't know if he did or not. I'd have to go back. I'd have to go back and look. That would be funny if he did. That would be
No, no,
funny if he
no.
did.
Yeah.
Right, right, exactly. Let's
And
see. What was I going to say? There was something else. Somebody asked about the punctuality and the culture change and all that. And Sieler did say that he said on the defensive line, we're going to make sure that that's different and everybody's been here and has been on time and all that kind of stuff. So, I guess that's being addressed, and I guess that it's a point of emphasis, at least in the defensive line circles. But he didn't speak for the entire team, which maybe I'm making too much into that. I don't know how much you're kind of grouped off at this time of the year. I don't know how much the entire team is together for anything. Maybe a meeting in the morning, but I don't know, how the weightlifting goes. But I thought it was interesting. He said among D line as opposed to among the whole team. Again, maybe I'm reading too much into that.
maybe. But that's just the way you are. That's just the way you are, Perk. There was one comment that actually I was looking in my notes here that he said that kind of like, and I'm not sure I liked it. If you remember when he referenced it to this is a players team.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Do
yeah,
we need
yeah,
this? Is that what we
yeah.
want? We need this for this to be a players team, which is great in theory, but in practice,
Yeah, I think I didn't know the origin of that comment, whether it was kind of we need to take control of this team or that we run this team. And here's what I would say it from, but that maybe they're thinking, what leadership has done hasn't worked. Maybe their leadership being too lenient and being too permissive hasn't worked, so the players need to take charge.
no, but that
Or
perk that
yeah,
goes back to last year, and I believe it was. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think if it was Tua who said it first, or if it was Mike
Tua.
McDaniel who said it first. Um, that it was, the players' team. And again,
and
is
and
that
that
a
they
good
worked
thing
in
or is that not a good
cooperation. I thought McDaniel kind of said they worked in cooperation, right? The players and the coaches, or one of them, two, or McDaniel, one of them kind of hinted that this is kind of a cooperative effort. And I'm like, no, there should be a leader. There should be a hierarchy here.
Yeah.
The coach is in charge, and the players, while you respect them and their opinion, that they're submissive to you. Like, you're in charge. This isn't a we're equal thing, or the players run the show. And I do think that the player empowerment is a big part of the cultural problem with the Dolphins, and it's something that I would like to see change. I think it's something that needs to change.
No, I agree. Before we wrap it up here, I just want to set the stage for this whole thing. Is we're starting to get players on the Zoom. Dolphins are now in phase 2 of the offseason program for the next 3 weeks. This is the first week of this. And in phase 2, they can do some stuff on the field, but it can be offense versus defense. So this is why you see the Dolphin social media clips of Tua throwing passes. The one I saw was to Devon Achane, or you could see Jalen Waddle running down the field. But it's limited. They're on the field, but it's limited. That's for 3 weeks. Again, the OTAs start the week of Memorial Day, which is Monday, May 26th. They're off on May 26th, but I believe they may have an OTA. In fact, they do have an OTA on May 27th. And then it'll be 4 weeks, the offseason program wrapping up with the minicamp. And then next week from today, May 14th, is the schedule release, which, of course, I'm looking forward to very much. So that's
and as a matter of fact, before the schedule release, a few days before that, we should hear the Dolphins' Madrid opponent. The international opponents usually leak out a few days before the May 14th schedule release.
Washington. I'm not sure who it's going to be, but Commanders. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what we've been told, or we've been led to believe.
Yeah, that's kind of the smoke that's in the air. I've seen Cincinnati as well, but it could be more along the lines of the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels. So that's going to be. He is Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Hopefully, episode 501 wasn't the worse than any of the previous 500. And my graphic is gone here. Anyway, please like, subscribe, check out his fine work, Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel, sunsentinel.com. I'm assuming you have a Dolphins deep dive next week at some point, Perk.
We will have one next week at some point, probably Tuesday at noon, but we will let you know.
Okay. As for me, barring breaking news that I have to comment upon, I shall be back on Friday. Please like, subscribe, share, all the good stuff. Check out Miami Dolphins on SI.com. In the meantime, thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your Wednesday and Thursday as well.